Hi guys, this is an interview with Alyssa Lynn, who has 12 books published right now, including the Perception trilogy, and the finale for that series is actually live for pre-order right now, and it's going to be released on April 15th. And then she's also got Mischief and Mistletoe, which was her bestseller. It's a holiday rom-com. And the Communal Coven series, which books 1 through 3 are available on Amazon. She recently started voice acting as well for her agent and good friend, who's also an author and editor on the side.
So I've been writing for a long time, but I started professionally in July of 2019. And that was the year that I published my very first book. I wrote my very first book in 24 days because I was super excited. I couldn't stop. I got up every morning and wrote, and then my stupid self decided that after I wrote it, I was going to publish it and market it as a trilogy, even though I had no plan for a second or third book. So I forced myself into that, but it ended up turning out very well. And the finale actually goes live in less than a month. It's going live April 15th. So yes, this was my baby. That's actually my brother on the cover, believe it or not. I did the photography for both books 1 and 2. But yeah, very exciting. So I'm excited for that to be over, but also bittersweet. Alyssa is my real name. So I write under that. I write anything from sci-fi to rom-coms, romantic suspense. That's all under my real name. But I also write under Mia Z Stay Sales, which is my genres that my mom is not allowed to pick up and read. So
Gotcha.
yes, I have them very separate because they are very different.
That's funny. And you're a mom as well, right?
I am.
Oh my word. So
Yes.
how do you find time to write and also be a mom at the same time? Because I know
I
how
don't
hard that
sleep.
is.
Yes. So I write full time. I have a full-time job. I'm a mom. I'm a girlfriend, and I am now voice acting. So yeah, I've got a lot on my plate, but I guess I just don't like to be bored. I bullet journal. So I keep a very tight schedule for myself, but I also find a bunch of time to waste playing Xbox. So um, priorities. But yeah, I mean, I work my full-time job during the day, and then I write in my free time. And after the kids go to bed is generally my time to write. And then on the weekends or Fridays when, I'm home alone, anytime I'm home alone is the only time I can record because I have a pop-up studio that my boyfriend and I assemble. And then I spend the next entire day or two just recording.
What got you into voice acting? And my other question is, how did you learn what audio equipment you needed and what editing software you needed? Like, how did you get that all together?
Honestly, YouTube. I did a lot of research. I watched so many YouTube videos. I watched a lot of Steve Bloom. He does a lot of voice acting. I'm not afraid to admit that I used to watch Digimon as a child. So he was one of the voice actors for one of my favorite characters in that show. He does a lot of gaming voiceovers. He was in Call of Duty. He's a very well-known name in the voice acting community. So I followed a lot of his YouTube channel videos, and I was taking, frantic notes, and I subscribed to a bunch of voice actors to see what was in their newsletters. And I just basically did a lot of research. I spent so much time. I took some online courses, just some free courses that I could afford at the time because, free is affordable, but also finding the time to watch them was a trick. But yeah, I also spoke with my close friend and agent, Billy Blue. She goes through Just Ask Her Productions. That's the company that I'm working with. So she told me everything that I would need. She is a godsend. She showed me how to build the pop-up studio that I'm using. Told me what microphones I would need, the headphones I would need, everything down to the way I should be standing. It was great.
Wow, that was
So yeah, I
awesome.
mean, yeah, I did some acting in local plays and stuff back when I was younger. Oddly enough, I had some like lead singing roles, which was very surprising because the only time you'll hear me sing is in a shower or in a car. So that's really about it.
Yeah, that's cool. So you said that your agent is your friend as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So that's really nice. So you didn't have to go out and like search for an agent. You had somebody who was already willing to help out with the process.
Hmm. Yes. Because I was like, I think I'm gonna get into this. And she's like, funny, you should say that. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that was
So
super
yeah,
nice. Okay, so with your first
absolutely.
book, yeah, so with your first book then, what was the process like? Like once you finished writing, what was the next step you did up until publication?
Um, so I got so tired of reading my own book. I called my mom because my mom is one of the smartest people that I know. And I said, I need you to read this for me. And we sat down there with the paper copy that I actually cried once I printed the entire thing off and held it because I'm always known for not finishing anything. I have so many unfinished canvases in my house that you would think that somebody just like erased most of my art because they're just sitting everywhere. House projects I'll tackle three at a time and not finish them. So for me to sit down and actually write a book, like even I was baffled. I'm like, I cannot believe I actually did that. And then the hard part started because I didn't know the first thing about editing a manuscript. I didn't know what a beta reader was. I knew nothing. So I got into a bunch of Facebook groups. I found my two best friends in a Facebook group because I said, hey, anybody in here want to form a little clique and kind of work our way through this together? And they messaged me and we've been talking ever since. So right around July of 2019, I met them through Facebook. Lila Gray, who writes MC romance, and May Thomas, who writes PNR romance. We kind of dove in head first. None of us had ever published. We've never written. So we kind of learned the process together. We did a lot of research and we learned what a beta reader was and we learned how to edit and we learned what KDP was and how to publish through Amazon. And we published our very first books and then we sat there and hit refresh in the back end of KDP for the next 24 hours because we're like, somebody's got to buy this book. But it was definitely an experience. And then I went and did it 11 more times. So I edited my very first book myself because whenever I went to college, one of my many degrees that I thought I was going to get was English ed. And so I was like, I can edit this, I'll be fine. I was not fine. It was not okay. I ended up just last year hiring a professional editor who is now working back through my backlog of books to kind of make them what they're supposed to be.
Hard though, because like when you're first starting off, hiring an editor is really expensive.
It is. Yes.
And then what did you start doing to promote your book?
I paid for Facebook ads. I put it out there on Instagram. I relied heavily on my beta readers, which after I found out what that was extremely beneficial. So I now have an alpha beta team and I also have an ARC reader team. So they're super helpful. My friends share my posts on social media. I have a newsletter that has thousands of subscribers to it. So that's a big help. I get the word out for my books through my newsletter. Word of mouth is great. Readers tell people about stuff. Goodreads is phenomenal because they have the giveaway option that you can, if you have a new release coming out, all they have to do is set it up onto their TBR and then they can be entered into the giveaway to win a free copy. So just alone, you'll get about 800 people at least adding your book to their TBR, which then people will see that in their newsfeed if they have followers, and it just kind of, spider webs out. So it's nice.
With the Facebook ads, do you find that you get do you make a profit off of the Facebook ads, or is that more to just get more eyes on the book and to help it start growing organically?
Yeah, I never really see like a spike in sales or anything with Facebook ads. I honestly end up finding myself halfway through the ad turning it off because I just get so disappointed. But it does, like, I get the likes and a lot of people are seeing it. But I notice that whenever I don't have them on, my TBRs on Goodreads don't jump up as high. So I put the Facebook ads back on and they're fine again. It's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't think that they'd be connected to Goodreads.
No.
That's so interesting. Okay, now TBR I actually have not heard of before. That's new to me. So what is that exactly with Goodreads?
So it's your to be read. So you
Okay.
have like your buttons on Goodreads. It's like, I've read this, I want to read this. If they add it to their want to read list, then Goodreads has this pretty little magic thing in the back end that will tell the author, all of these people have added this, and they handle the entire giveaway. All you have to do is set it up and determine if you want it to be an ebook or paperback, and they do the rest. So it's super nice. It's not cheap,
Yeah,
but it's nice.
well, that's a really cool tool. I didn't know that that existed. So that's good to know.
Yes.
And then as far as building the email list goes, how do you get people into your email list?
Book funnel. Book funnel is it's not, it's tedious, it's a lot of work, but I'm constantly checking book funnel, adding my books into new promos, because once you add your book into a promo, for others to get it, they have to, sign up for your newsletter, or here's the buy button, or they have to do something in order to get what you're offering. So mine is for my newsletter. They subscribe to my newsletter.
A lot of these we've kind of covered in part. What would you say right now is one of the biggest challenges of being an author or a voice actor, either one or all of the above?
I would have to, like, my issue right now is I don't want to write to market. So my book sales aren't as high as I would like them to be, because I want to write what I want to write, which is why I could never be traditionally published, because one, I don't want to write by somebody else's schedule, but I also don't want to be told what to write, because it's like getting a homework assignment. I will do it that morning in class. I'm not going to do it. So if it feels like a chore, I'm not going to write it. So I would say that writing to market is probably the biggest struggle for me. I've tried, like, right now I'm seeing, like, all of my friends write dark romance. So I was like, oh, I'm going to create my other personality and I'm going to write this. And I find myself diving back into my romantic suspense and into my sci-fi, because that's where I'm at. Like, that's what I can write. But I also just did a dark retelling of Snow White, and my readers were like, you have to do another one of these. You have to do this. This was fantastic. But the whole time I'm writing it, I'm like cringing. So it was like, I can't say that it wasn't fun, but it's not what I usually write. So I'm very sarcastic and rom-com, and that's me. So for me to, like, try to be somebody that, like, I like to read but try to write it, just it was interesting. This was my debut, so this was the one that has my heart, that will forever have my heart. But I have rom-com novellas. My second biggest seller was Mischief and Mistletoe, which is a holiday rom-com. But I also have a witchy series about me and my two best friends who all build a commune, and then the murder happens, and then kids get hurt, and then, so, like, I write everything from sci-fi to rom-com to romantic suspense. So if you have a preference, I will go off of any of these.
Okay, I kind of want to hear about two. I want to hear about the debut novel, and then I want to hear about, there was the one of the rom-coms that you picked up.
So my debut novel, I actually, this story spawned from a dream that I woke up, not to, like, Martin Luther King my way through this interview, but I literally woke up and was like, I have to write that down. So it starts out with I guess I'm not very it starts out with a girl and her best friend. They're orphans. They were orphaned very young. While they're outside playing, they get far away from the orphanage and they find this unknown building. Needless to say, about next chapter, the boy goes running in, does not come back out. So the girl then 10 years later is at her birthday when it happened, ends up wanting to go back and find out what happened. So she ends up in the building and she ends up in trouble. She's being dragged out of the building by a familiar face. And when she happens to look up at him, she's like, oh my God, it's you. Well, then she comes to find out that he is a clone, that her best friend died as a child. So they go through this entire book on the run from the people who created him. And he's learning the ways of their world. He doesn't understand like obesity or sarcasm or anything. And there's this very interesting part that my readers absolutely love that I had stickers made of, because Demo, the clone, ends up going up to a very large woman and poking her, saying things like, "I've never seen an enlarged human before," and which almost leads to a fist fight. They end up leaving. It's this big ordeal. But a lot happens in this series. And then the second book is the falling out between Ava, who's the main character, and Demo, all while they're dealing with a big loss from book one. And then that leads into a huge ending for book three. I can't give too much away because my readers will come after me. I've already been threatened. So, but yes, it's very intense. There are triggers, but it's a very intense series, and all of the ratings basically say that people have read book one in one sitting because they could not put it down. So it's a page turner. And feel free to hop into my DMs after you read it to scream at me like everybody else has. So totally fine. I'm used to it by now. So yeah, that's my debut, my trilogy, and the finale will be out again on April 15th. So super excited to close that out, but also very bittersweet because it's been a couple years in progress because I just couldn't get myself to do it. My other big seller is my holiday rom-com. So this is about a girl who is like the king or queen of one night stands, and she ends up going out to a bar with her best friend and meets this guy. Her favorite thing to do is basically make up a story about her life. She can be a queen, she can be, prince's niece, she can be whatever she wants to be because she's never going to see these people again. Well, the one story she comes up with, she meets this guy. She ends up drunkenly giving him her number. He comes back around. And it turns out that she wasn't the only one living under false pretenses. So that's all I'm going to say, because again, I don't want to give away too much of the story, but my sister actually named all of the characters in this book. She had a field day with that one. So, yes. But this one is this is my second best. So next to my debut, Mischief and Mistletoe is my biggest because it's very much a rom-com. Also, all of my books are mature content. So just putting that out there.
So just one last question. If you could, for new readers or for new writers, people who are struggling to get their book published in the first place, or for someone who's published a novel and they're just really having a hard time with the marketing and promotion and getting kind of discouraged, what advice would you give them?
Mainly the biggest reason I think that people struggle with their marketing is because they're comparing themselves to other authors. They see these other authors with, hundreds and hundreds of ratings on their books. But those other authors, they could have an entire team that they built prior to publishing. I don't know if they're like me, but I was super excited to get my book published. So I didn't do anything. I wrote the book, I edited the book, and I slapped it into Amazon. I didn't do any research. I didn't have a reading team or a street team. I didn't have anything. So my advice is to make sure that you do your research before you publish, because if I could go back, I so would have done that. I would have made sure that my reading base was a lot stronger, that I had all of my social media platforms up and running, because that's what people want. It's the buildup that here's a couple teasers of what I'm working on. This is when it's going live, but don't give away too much of the story that they're going to be like, well, now I don't need to read it. So you got to find that sweet spot. But also, just the comparing thing is what kills a lot of writers. Just don't compare your chapter. This is very much a writer quote, but your chapter one is way different than somebody else's chapter one. You're coming in at a different place that other people are. So just try to build up your social media, have a newsletter ready to go. Just do your research, because your first book is going to set the pretense for your name. They're going to know, oh, she wrote that book and that was really well marketed because I saw it on whatever platform. So her writing must be good. Yeah, just make sure that you do your research and set yourself up with a good base.
Thank you so much. And actually, one more question came up when you were talking about that. What social media platforms do you use?
Oh, what don't I use at this point? So I got into the TikTok trend a little bit late, but whenever I was doing my TikTok, I kind of meshed my writing in with cosplay because I like art, I paint, I draw. So my cosplay is what bumped up my TikTok, but I also do Twitter very rarely because whenever you're using social media, my tip for everybody, because I got this tip myself, is to not follow, like don't not follow. Try not to connect yourself with too many authors. Gear yourself more toward the reading base, because yes, authors are going to buy your books, you know, if they're trying to help you out, but authors are busy writing, they're busy marketing, they're busy building their teams. So you want to use your hashtags on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, gear it toward readers of Instagram, readers of TikTok, bookworms. Don't gear it more toward the author side, because the authors are going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be looking for the readers, not the authors. But I'm all over Facebook. I have a like page for both of my pen names and my voice acting name. I have a profile page, to like an ad page, a friend page for both of my pen names, but not my voice acting, because there's really not much there. It's just me talking all the time talking. So I was like, I'm just gonna leave that as a like page. But I have websites, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I use it all.
Well, thank you so much. There was a lot of really valuable information in there. I even learned a lot of stuff. So I really appreciate that.